And we're live. Hi, Kelly. Good morning.
Good
Um,
morning.
my name's Crystal, and I'm an electrologist. I've been doing this for about 2 years, a little over 2 years. I'm new to this game. I changed careers at the age of 50, and so I'm really new, and I'm really always so appreciative of people like Kelly and other people in our industry who are always willing to teach me more, teach all of us more, to make us all better. And today we're going to do a presentation to other electrologists who want some help in giving a trans client an amazing consult before you ever start removing any hair. And Kelly has been a part of the trans community forever. You're not trans, but you are part of their community because you're like me. You're very protective of the trans community. I know you love your trans community there. You're in Chicago. I'm in San Jose, but it's a special community, and we want to make sure that we give them all the respect that they deserve.
Well, yeah, that's true. And it's funny how I became part of the community is I had a bunch of different friends because I was that weird kid, you know. And so it's weird kids all just kind of hung out. So naturally that followed me into my young adulthood and whatnot. And as a young adult, I got into electrologists at 19. And they gave me all the clients nobody else wanted to work on because, mind you, it was 1986. You've got the AIDS epidemic. Everybody's afraid of AIDS. Everybody's afraid of gay people, trans people. Oh, those are weird people too, even on top of gay. So yeah. And I was just like, shit, I got to hear about all the nightclubs and the lifestyle I wasn't old enough to go play in yet and wanted to be part of.
Right. So, yeah, I hear you. Yeah, it's so funny.
And I had friends, I had friends that had AIDS, so it was no big deal because I understood the disease.
Me too, yeah.
And flash forward to 50 years, I always felt like I was the redheaded stepchild that was accepted in by the gay community, even though I was, the straight person everybody thought was a lesbian, but I was really straight. And it took me till I was 50. And I was telling the client what an ally, that I'm an ally and stuff like that. And they were trying, she goes, no, I think you're part of the community. I go, well, I'm female. I like boys, don't feel like, changing any parts other than the fact maybe having less of some. And she goes, no, I think you're non-conforming. And I went,
oh, yeah.
Ding! Yeah.
Yeah, we weren't really talking a lot about non-conforming and things like that and non-binary in the 80s. I was going to say earlier, the 80s is when I was going through high school, like, 1982 through 86. And the HIV crisis, was right up on me. And I felt so much compassion for people. I had a colleague when I started working, he said that I was the first person to ever hug him since he got his diagnosis. So shit like that, I'm just like, I'm not going to catch AIDS from hugging somebody or HIV or whatever. So people are so ridiculous, and anyway, I feel a lot of protection over the LGBTQ community and the trans community because I know how fucked it can be and how ridiculous some people can be. And pardon my language, but it gets me really pissed off. But anyway, Kelly, tell everybody where you are, who you are, about your school, all that good stuff.
Okay, so I'm in Oak Park, Illinois, which is about 10 miles straight west of the Loop in Chicago. My school is in the same building that my business is in.
Cool.
And you kind of touched on it. Education is everything.
Oh, yeah.
Education is everything. I've been doing this like 35 years, and I still don't know everything.
Oh, for sure.
There's stuff I want to learn. There's techniques I want to be better at. Absolutely. And I tell my students all the time, when you think you know everything, it's time to retire.
Yeah. So here in California, to get licensed to become an electrologist, you have to go to 600 hours of school at a official, electrology college, basically. And then you have to take the state board exam. What about in Illinois?
In Illinois, we have a state board exam, and you need 600 hours.
Yeah. Okay.
And of education in order to sit for your license, and then you take a board. We don't have a practical, which I think is kind of like a problem, but it's what it is, and who knows, down the line maybe we can get that changed.
Yeah, I heard in California they're removing the practical, which I don't understand at all. But
yeah, that's a huge mistake because I can't tell you how many times I have colleagues that come with me to have have their techniques critiqued, and the biggest problem I see is not knowing how to do a good insertion, knowing where to put that probe,
Yep.
and using all your senses in order to find where the bottom of that follicle is, because
Right. Yeah.
it's not that easy. It's more complicated than putting in the hole and cranking up the heat.
I know.
And especially when you've got somebody who's got a lot of hair on their face. If they
Yeah.
have 3 chin hairs, it's not
Yeah.
that big of a deal. But if you got a face full of hair and you're trying to get all of that hair off their face, and you do a lot of over treatment on that, their face is going to look like a Chicago street.
Yeah. So it's important to know that and to think about that, because when you do have a trans client, if they're transitioning male to female, you're going to have to remove all of the, I call it extra hair, that they're not going to want as they begin their transition into presenting as a femme, right? So
Exactly.
all the hair a man has.
Yeah. And as an electrologist, we have a responsibility of helping them, guide them, because a lot of times they don't understand the process that they need to go through hair removal. They just look in the mirror and see a man. And I don't care if you're cisgender female, transgender female, bigender, and you just don't like the masculinity of the hair there, when you see that in the mirror, it's emotionally damning.
It is, yeah.
And it's a lot of work, we love that old question: how many treatments before it's done?
How long is it going to take?
Treatment. And my answer is, I could do it 1 treatment, but your face is going to look like Deadpool.
I love Deadpool. Yeah, I hear you.
And our job, our art, is to remove the hair and have it look like they never had the hair in the first place.
Exactly. So yeah, okay. So I'm new. Like, I started this, a little bit over 2 years. I have lots of trans clients, but I have to say, my first trans client, I was intimidated, not because they were trans, but because I felt like I had so much more to learn, right? I always wanted to be learning more. And, you learn 600 hours at school, but we didn't work on any people that were trans at school. And I wanted to make sure that I left this person feeling supported and loved, and that I was on their side to do the best job I could for them. And I wasn't quite sure if I knew how to do the best job for them, especially when it came to removing hair from their genitals. And as we say this a lot, and I know Stephanie in Arizona says this a lot, y'all, skin is skin is skin. Whether it's genital hair or chin hair or back hair, it's just all skin. And if you don't sexualize it, there is zero sexual about giving a person hair removal on their scrotal sac. It's just skin.
It is. But we're human too, so we have to get past our own emotional, like, oh shit, I'm touching a boob. Oh shit, I'm doing hair next to a vagina. Oh shit, I'm touching a penis. Oh shit, I'm doing an asshole. Literally, oh shit. But once you anytime you go to do something new, you have all these preconceived fears, and we don't know what it's going to be like once we get there. Then we get there, and it's kind of like, that was it.
Yeah. I know. I was so worried about hurting them, because obviously scrotal sac, shaft, in my experience, are pretty sensitive areas. I'm also cisgendered, and my relationships are with men, and so I have some familiarity with penises and testicles, and I know them to be very sensitive, so I was a little nervous, but my client was amazing. She was like, Crystal, I've done this before. Here, let me stretch this for you. She was amazing, and she helped me a lot. And hopefully, I'm still helping her.
Yeah, I mean, the thing you got to remember is, when you're working with genital work for the trans women, number one, a male penis behaves differently than a female penis.
Totally, 100%. 100%.
Also, the scent is different. They don't smell like men. Yeah. And if you're into guys, you know what men smell like. Okay. And if you've done enough panty lines of women, you know what women smell like. It's not like I'm sitting there whiffing big whiffs, but you
get pretty close.
Formal, you get close to do your work. Okay. It's just there. Okay. Yeah. And It's just different.
Yeah.
And how the body responds to touch is different depending on if, what hormones are going through their body,
For sure.
and how long they've been on those hormones, so those are all different factors too.
And I think we have to always keep in mind, be super sensitive, because from what I understand is that, they really have a lot of dysmorphia around their genitals, and it's a sensitive. What's that?
Some, not all, but
right.
you have to be very aware about that.
Right. So you just, so I was just, trying to be like all business, draping, gloves, mask. It's just like I'm removing hair from your calf, right? You don't have to make it a big thing. If you don't make it a big thing, it's not going to be a big thing. And, just be sensitive to how they might be feeling. They might not want to look at it. They might not want to have you ask them, what about this? They might not want to. Not everybody has that, like Kelly says, but it can be difficult for them, I think, because they have most of their life, probably some of their life, they've not really identified with their particular genitals that they were given at birth.
I will say I have seen the gamut of stuff. I mean, you've got some people that, yes, it's part of the body. Yes, they want to change it, but they're not extremely dysphoric about it.
Right.
They might have partners and they get enjoyment from it.
Yeah.
And even though they look forward to enjoying it in different ways, they can manage it in a different mind space than others.
Sure.
Then you have others that don't even want to use it to go to the restroom.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And then I have trans clients that want to keep their penis.
Oh, yeah. Because that's part of them. That's them. And they're women with female penises. And that's just, I get it. I just get it, I have seen, not so much lately over the last decade or so, but earlier in my career, I can't tell you how many times I have seen self-injury to the genital area.
Yeah.
I literally had a client that performed an orchiectomy on themselves and nearly completed it until they panicked when they saw a lot of blood there. Then they went to emergency, but they did a damn good job. They researched it on YouTube, but it's just, that's how serious this can be. And the individual we're talking about is a person who was highly educated, very intelligent, and not, your first thing is like, wow, they must be whacked and out of the mind and dumb as hell. No, quite the opposite. And after that, that's when I think their medical people started taking her seriously, and things started moving the direction that she needed to.
Kelly, tell everybody what an orchiectomy is, because I didn't know what an orchi was until about 5 years ago when I was talking with some trans friends. I was like, I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, an orchiectomy is basically removal of the testicles. And you either hear the word orchiectomy or castration.
Or they call it, some people call it orchi.
Or orchi, yeah. Yeah.
It's a cute name. But I was like, before I got into this industry is when I learned about that. And I was like, I didn't know sometimes people only have the testes removed. So, I mean, anything you can imagine is probably done, but you need to educate yourself, right? You need to educate yourself so you don't sound ignorant. And you want to make your all clients feel as comfortable as possible so that you have the knowledge, right? And one thing I really want to talk about, Kelly, because I know you're sensitive to this, and I know because you've been in this community for a long time, but there's certain words that people don't use anymore. We don't use the word tranny anymore. That's really, really not okay anymore. Just like I would never use the gay slur that starts with an F. I would never use the racial slur that starts with an N. I don't use the R word, and I also don't use the T word, and it's not appropriate. It's not my word. It's not my community. I love their community, but I'm not really in it. I think you're more in your trans community.
Well, yeah, because I've been around it so long and I've been part of it, because I was non-conforming, but I didn't have the words for it yet.
Right. Yeah.
Back when the word tranny started, it was an inside thing that was only spoken to. And it's like, she's one of us. They're one of us. They're a tranny. They're okay. She's one of us. It was a word of love.
Mm-hmm.
And then people got a hold of it, and now they've made it a word of hate, which kind of pisses me off.
I know.
Because you know what? to my friend Monica Monroe, was the first person to call me a tranny. Do you know what an honor that was?
I'm sure.
You know, because I was sitting there. She worked at the Baton, which is a nightclub here in Chicago, and just for people who don't know, Monica Monroe is like one of the royalty of drag performing, especially in the early 90s and 90s. She was A-list top list. Okay. Like there's a reason she's a drag queen. I'm an electrologist, because if the same thing in anything, the world would implode. Okay?
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
We got along. We're like sisters in a way. Okay.
Yeah.
And this younger queen comes up and kind of gives me the like, oh, your fish look. What are you doing talking to Monica Monroe? You know? And she looks at me, she's like, who's this fish? Which was not a nice thing, you know. And Monica just turns right at her and says, this is Miss Kelly. Oh, nice. She may look like fish, but I'll tell you what, I know somewhere down there, there's a little tiny dick. She's a tranny. And that girl just turned around like that. And that made me feel like, oh.
Right. Yeah. You're part of their club.
Yeah. And then flash forward 10 years later, I'm doing male drag. And that's one of my jokes. Yeah, I'm hung like a number 2 eraser.
But it's not my word, right? It's not most of our electrology colleagues. It's not their word to use. And sadly, you know, modern media and comedy and stuff are the ones that kind of perverted the use of that word, and they turned it into a slur. But like the word fat, I embrace the word fat. I'm fat. I'm taking the word back, right? Because I'm a fat person. That's my word. I'm fat. There's no hiding it. If you're trans and you want to use that, I'll call it a slur, but it's not necessarily a slur all the time, that you're allowed because you're in that club. But we are not. And we should never use that word in our business or our industry.
No. I mean, not unless you really, really know that person and how that word affects them. Today, that's a slur. That's a slur, you know. Yep. And like some of the other, I try to educate them where that word came from, because they don't know it came out of love.
Right, of course.
So I like to have people know where that word came from, because I was part of the experience of the birthing of that word.
Right.
You know.
So let's talk about how we address people that are trans. So most of my clients, well, I'll say all of my clients, let me know ahead of time that they want, you know, genital work done, or that they're transitioning. And somehow I guess it always comes up, like if someone starts asking me a bunch of questions, I'll just say, any chance that you're transitioning? And they say either yes or no. So
okay. So let's start out, because sometimes, you know, because I'm well known within the community about a person that serves the community. And so when they come, they might not say they're trans. They just assume I know because, you know, I have trans radar, right?
Right, yeah.
Sometimes I really don't always know, you know. So things I look in the history card kind of gives me a clue if they haven't already told me, or if they haven't already put something down, because I don't flat out ask if you're trans. Okay.
I do ask people what pronoun should I use? So I'll say,
I have that on my card, you know, but if they look feminine and they put she, and to me, they, you know, like I would never go, oh, there goes one, you know, because I just, it's just what it is, you know. They look like they were born female, because they do, you know. And they were lucky enough to go through one puberty, and they went through the right one the first time. You know, they don't have as many struggles as other people,
right?
So at least to my eye, you know. And so the first clue to me is when I'm looking at medications. Because if they're on testosterone, or I'm sorry, if they're on estrogen, and if they're on Spiro, that's a big clue. You know, if they haven't put down menstrual history, that's kind of a big clue.
Right.
And then you talk about that. But then again, you know, I've had clients that have had a pretty awkward menstrual history, you know, and have been foreign females. So it's not always, but it's those things coupled together. And then when you get down on their surgeries, you know, and if they've put down they've had an orchiectomy, well, that's a big clue. You know, if they put down they've had, and on my surgery thing, I ask if they've had FFS. the general public do not know what FFS is.
No.
Only if you're a trans client do you know what FFS is, or you're heavily in the community.
Right.
You know what FFS is. And orchiectomy or breast augmentation. And if you see a lot of these things here, and you know, if they're coming in for genital clearing, then that'll come up, because when you ask and I think on our form it says genital, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but if they're coming in for their face and they're young and they don't have a lot of hair on their face,
mm-hmm. It's hard to know.
It's hard to know.
Yeah.
If they have just a little bit and they're not ready for surgery yet, you know, and they're just starting. Usually the big clue is the medications that they're on Spiro, you know, and yet, and if they're on Spiro and they haven't marked that they have PCOS, you know, if they're on Spiro, they're either on it because they have PCOS or some other endocrine issue, which, you know, it's marked down there, or if it's not marked down there, it's kind of like, then you can ask them, it's like, are you going through any transitions? And that's when it'll come out, you know, and then once you know they're trans, okay, once you know they are transgender, I make sure they understand about choices that they have to make, especially if it's early in their transition, about realizing when to make choices about, you know, do you have facial surgery coming up? Is that something you want to do in your life? Because if you have a lumberjack beard and you want to go for facial surgery in like 3 or 6 months because you're on a rush to get everything done now because you're like 50 and you're like, shit, I'm going to do this now. And I've got the money to do everything now. You have to realize the choices that you're making, how that affects your body.
Right.
So if you're doing a lot of bone work on your face and you're still doing a lot of electrolysis on the face, you ever have a broken bone? You know how sore that broken bone is? You get a bunch of chin work, jaw work, and I just have to gently stretch your skin. You know how much more that's painful?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, either A, get your FFFs first and then wait a year to start electrolysis, or B, get to the point where you're under maintenance on your face, and because you're not going to want me to touch your face a good 6 months after your surgery, because it's going to be, it's going to hurt more. Your nerves are going to be on fire. Your bones are going to be on fire. The pain level is going to be up here. And if your pain level is up here anyway, it's going to be to the moon.
Some people might not understand that when people transition, oftentimes they want what they call like a feminization of their face. So where people who are born with a penis often have larger bones, larger faces, they have an Adam's apple. Sometimes when people are transitioning, they want to have this sort of taken down a little bit. They want to have their jaw, their cheekbone taken down, their nose taken down. So that's what you're referring to, right?
Yes. And there's different people. Not everybody wants the whole thing.
No.
Not everybody gets it done at the same time.
Right.
Now, if you're just doing tissue work, a lot of times you go ask the doctor, because the doctor has different ideas. Okay.
Boy, do they.
Like, if they get this done, I can work in and around it.
Sure.
I'm just not working close to it until those stitches are out and that raw pink is gone. And then I can work in it maybe like, I don't know, maybe like 2 or 3 months later, I'll work actually in and around that scar, but not until then. I might 6 weeks later, I'll probably go up to it. But if it's pink skin, I'm going to avoid it until that raw pink goes away and you just got that light pink or that medium pink.
Yeah, whenever it looks angry, I say stay away from it, right? If it looks a little angry still.
It looks a little angry. If it's just healing and it's just translucent, that's one thing. But, you know, if you do one hair and if that tissue's not reacting nicely, don't do another one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Take your time. The hair will be there later.
You told me once that your intake for your trans clients takes about 1.5 hours.
Well, number one, if anybody knows me, they know I like to talk and give you more information than you ever want to know. So in my office, it ranges. I would say generally, most people on my staff take anywhere from if it's a fast track, if you've had electrolysis before and you've had a good consultation before, I can get my consultation done in about a half hour if I get yucky. Okay. If you've not had a good consultation and I get the sense you're not into all the extra stuff and I just hit the main points, I can get it done in about 45 minutes if I really try hard.
Okay.
Usually takes about an hour to do my regular consultation the way I like to do it. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I like to do about a 15-minute sample treatment.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
during that, I figure out which probe. Wait, where's my thumb? Okay. Which probe, which modality, which technique in that modality, figure out what they're sensitive to.
Uh-huh.
And also helps me figure out what their sense level is, especially if I'm doing genital work. Because
Yeah.
then I decide, okay, they can handle maybe about this much time, so I don't screw up how much time I'm booking. I don't
Right.
book them for 3 hours because they think they can handle it, and then they're tapping out after 15 minutes, and then I got a hole in my wall.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I don't have a button in my chair for 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So that helps me assess that. And if I think that they only need a topical, we go that route. If I think they need a stronger topical, I hook them up with that doctor to get that medication. If I think they need shots, we hook them up with that. So our time is efficient.
I find that a lot of people think that they can do like, let's just do 2 hours. Let's do an hour first. Let's just work on this scrotal sac for a little while, and then we'll see if you can really next time if you can really do. I don't really like to do 2 hours, but I know they're on a goal, right? They have a mission they want to take care of, and I know they want it done as soon as possible. And I also know the doctors are telling them, oh, it just takes about 6 months to get all that hair removed, and it's so
they don't understand.
They have no idea. I'm like, oh, it's probably going to take 2 years, and they're like, my doctor said it'll take 6 months. Such a nightmare. Yeah. I wish we could get the doctors on board with us somehow.
Yeah, I tell them the doctors are surgeons. They're not electrologists.
Yeah, and I guess they don't account for the fact that sometimes hair is dormant, and especially genital hair, because genital hair seems to be slower growing. And I tell them sometimes, we're just waiting on hair to grow. So what is the goal to have like no new hair grown for like 3 or 6 months before their surgery?
That depends on what doctor you talk about.
Okay.
And I tell my clients all the time, I have seen people that have had no hair removal go get surgery, and they're completely fine. The removal of the testicles is enough to remove enough of the free-floating testosterone that those areas go bald.
Right.
The trauma of the surgery is another, because that tissue's getting moved or rearranged, and depending on the type of surgery they get, because sometimes they just fully remove the tissue from the body, rearrange it, put it back inside. Right. Sometimes they do this cool origami where they kind of do some slices and cuts, so the skin is still attached to the rest of the organ, the rest of the skin organ, and they just resew it in different ways and tuck it in. Yep. So some of them do scraping, some of them do cauterizations. All these surgeons have different techniques they use in their surgery.
Yep.
So I have seen people that had not a carpet, but had maybe mild hair or not much hair and be just fine. And I've seen people who I had a client, she started 2 years before. She was doing great. She went in for surgery. She ended up having hair in her vagina. Why? Because afterwards, because she had so little testosterone when she was done, she had to go on testosterone for energy.
Wow.
And so now she added back more testosterone she had before. So shit that went dormant.
Explosion of hair.
So, these are things that I counsel my clients on when you make decisions. It's like, okay, don't be surprised if you have to go on testosterone later. This is a possibility. I've seen it happen.
I feel like the reality police, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, we have to have this discussion because it's important. But just so you know, it's rare to get this done in 6 months. It just doesn't happen. I mean, and they, sometimes they're really disappointed or let down. And I understand that because they really want this done, but it just unfortunately takes a little longer than what surgeons tend to tell them. But yeah, I say, do some more research, talk to other electrologists. We all kind of say the same thing. If you have to have most of your hair removed for a surgery where you're going to have your genitals changed up, it's probably going to need a good 1.5 to 3 years. I mean, it could be, if you're super hairy, it could be even longer than 2 years. And then the same with the face, right? That could take 2 years as well. It's just,
well, on the face, if you're on the fast track, if your butt is in my chair, like every week. And I'm
Right.
doing like
That's the difference.
3 hours. And when I say 3 hours, that's my 3 hours.
Right. Yep.
It might be 4 hours from the other people that work with me. It might be 6 hours for some of the newer people that work with me, because
Right.
if I can pick a modality where I can do those hairs in a second or less,
Moving fast.
especially if I can do like a flash or a fast method. If I'm doing pure thermolysis flash and I'm on a roll, on the face, I can do about 1,000 to 1,200 hairs in an hour.
Wow.
Okay.
That's
But
amazing.
I'm moving more towards a blend thing now, like a flash blend, because of how I can manipulate the machine that I have. I can do that now, where I couldn't do that with other epilators before.
Yeah.
At least I didn't understand or know how to, but generally what I can get done in an hour, many other electrologists may take 2 hours to do, just from their natural place if they're doing flash.
Yeah.
And I tell my clients that, because if you go somewhere else and they're twice as slow, you found a good one.
Right. Yeah. No kidding.
If they're 4 times as slow and you don't feel the hairs coming out, you found a good one. And I'd rather see you go to somebody who's 4 times as slow as me than somebody's as fast as me and is just give you high-tech tweezing.
Basically, right? Yeah. They're all coming back. So, Kelly, so let's think about new electrologists. I know there's a few new women in my area that are about to get started. They passed their test. What would you tell them, just as a general rule? Please don't ever, set expectations by saying this could take 1 to 3 years. Like, what would you say? How would you say it to?
Okay, so we got 2 different realms we're looking at here. Number one, you're looking at, let's talk about the general area first, because that's just shorter speech. Okay. Number one, I want 18 months to 2 years before your surgery if you want the best possible result post-surgery. I can get pretty good results at a year. A year or less, I will do the best I can with the time I've got, and you will have less hair than you would have if you'd not done electrolysis at all.
Right.
And that's just the fact. Yeah. You'll have surgeons that'll say, oh yeah, all you need is 3 clearings. Now, mind you, if you do 3 clearings, that's a clearing once every 3 months.
Right. Yeah. Because hair takes 13 weeks to grow, right? Most hair.
Yeah. And that's possible, but you're gonna get electrolysis once every 6 months. Right. And frankly, the longest time I want in between for surgery, for clearings is like 3, because I'm getting, then I know I'm pretty much getting things before it really goes into a catagen stage.
Right.
I mean, if they're in the area, I have them come in every 6 weeks. But if they're coming in from out of town and they got to do a lot of traveling to get me, I try to encourage them to do 3 months. So it really depends.
Yeah, it depends a lot on how often they come, how often they can afford to come see you, how much time they have, how much time you have on your calendar. I mean, there's so many variables.
Tolerance,
yeah. And then I find that people who use the EMLA cream, they have a lot higher tolerance. Just because it seems they can handle more with the EMLA. But some people just use lidocaine. Some people don't use anything, which I'm like, whoa. But some people, they can only take 15 minutes. Other people can take a full hour. It just depends on. And I know for me, some days I can't take more than 15 minutes on my own body. So I can only imagine what it's like for them. And then what do you say to people? What do you think they should say the minimum about like removing a full beard? What do you tell? Do you say a year or 2 years?
What I tell them, I go, the Hinckley, our electrologist Bible says it takes anywhere from 300 to 500 hours to do a male beard.
Yep.
Okay. And that's the blend method. Okay. And that's doing the blend method the way they invented it in the that they created in the 1940s and wrote about in the 50s.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have technology now that can move that along. So, right. You can get, but if you put 300 to 500 hours in their head, they're going to get it.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, this is going to take time. And if you do an hour a week, do the math.
Right. Exactly.
If you do 3 hours a week, do the math. In the beginning, I'm going to get to know you very, very, very well.
That is so key. You really have to vibe, because we're going to be spending a lot of time together. I'm not for everybody. I understand that. It does not hurt my feelings. And you know what? It's okay if they don't want to work with me, but you really do have to have a little bit of a relationship, because you're going to be up close either to their genitals or their face, and you're going to be spending a lot of time together over the next 2 or 3 years. So it helps to have a good vibe with your electrologists and feel like your electrologist is confident, feel like they know where they can go when they need more information, feel like they know where to go to continue to grow professionally. Like you said, we'll never know it all. And I'm always looking to enhance my education of electrology. I just know like what you can fit on the dot of a pen, because I'm so new at this. That's why I appreciate people like you and Stephanie, who are willing to share all of your knowledge with all of us, because you guys have been in the trenches for a long time. And I know that you've worked with a lot of both of you have worked with a lot of trans people. And you guys are both such an amazing font of information for me and everybody else.
Yeah, thank you. So a couple of things I want to get out there. Okay. One, when you're working on the genital area, okay, I tend to kind of like mother my clients, or I kind of see myself as a homeroom teacher, and I'm watching these people go through stuff. Okay.
Right.
And that's just me. That's just how I am. Not everybody's that way. And that's, but for me, and one thing I learned from my own doctor that, because I flat out asked her one time, I go, when you're doing these gyne exams, how do you make what are you taught? What do you tell people, or how do you come into people to do these very personal exams? And she says, key is you don't touch from the genital area first.
Right. So
a lot of times I'll start at the knee, and then I will slowly, like if this is the knee and my face is the genital, okay, I'll slowly go here, and then I'll go to where I need to touch. And anytime you go back to touch, you don't go back to touch here. You always start out and come in so they get a sense of it. And that's really important, especially for the people that are dysphoric about the genitalia.
Right, yeah.
So sometimes just putting your hand on their thigh is enough to spark it. So I will stay there for a minute and be like, take a deep breath.
Right, yes.
Let me know you want to give me permission to go in.
Go to your happy place.
Go to your happy place. Let them get calm. And let them give you permission to go in a little bit further, because they got a place they got to get to in their head to allow you to even touch them.
Yep.
And these are the people who have extreme dysphoria about this.
Great advice.
And they appreciate that, and then they appreciate that trust and bond with you. And sometimes you got to spend some time just getting there with them.
Yep. Do you do a lot of draping and stuff, or do most of your clients want to be?
I teach draping. Yeah. I didn't start draping more until I started teaching. Because guess what? I was trained like shit, so I didn't know about draping. What the fuck is draping? Draping? What? Isn't that what doctors do in surgery?
Well, it's what my clients call it, like a modesty. Do you have a modesty?
Yeah. So we've got.
Eventually, it's going to all be out in the open, but it's just like when you're having an exam, you don't stand up naked in front of your gynecologist, right? You wait for them to leave the room, and then you put your clothes on.
See, I'm the one, I'm tripping my shirt off as soon as the nurse, whatever. And part of it is, me, myself, I never had those issues.
Yeah.
So it took me a while to learn for other people to respect those, because, it's just problems I never had.
Right.
So, so I do the draping more. I mean, we do have now we just recently got the doctor type things you can throw on for people to wear that, need to take off all their clothes or whatnot. So that's, we've got the sheets now, and we have different size sheets so we can use for draping, so we don't have skin on skin contact.
Yeah.
I mean, for that, I was doing a while just because, I don't want my skin on fresh. What I would do is if it was unzapped skin, I didn't care. But if I was working over zapped skin, I want a barrier between my flora and their flora.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and that's when I would do that, but I will say some clients, because I wasn't over drapey, made it feel, it made them feel more okay, because there was like that physical bond of humanness there.
Right.
That's not true with all clients, but, and honestly, some, don't mind it, because then they feel like I'm in an environment. It's okay for me to be 100% me, and it's not awkward.
Right. Yes. That's right. Always let them make them feel 100%.
Yeah. So there's like a double-edged sword there, but we teach our students how to drape, because really you should be.
It's more professional, I believe.
I just wasn't trained right freaking 30 years ago.
Right.
I had to figure this shit out as I went along.
Yeah. Before we end, I want to talk about a little bit, because maybe people don't understand why it's so important. And I know there's a lot of doctors that say they have, scraping and they can cauterize hair and stuff like that. But really, in truth, it's important to remove the hair, because part of the skin is going to become internal. It's going to be like turned into a vaginal canal.
Yeah, that part's going to be the vagina. So one of the points I wish we could get across the doctors, because some doctors use the skin on the shaft for the vagina, and then they use the scrotal tissue for the labia.
Right.
Other doctors do the reverse.
Oh, really?
So what's important to know is, when they're coming in, it's for surgery. Have them bring the template the doctor wants.
Yeah, the shows.
Now, mind you, those templates are just general directions. Just because not everybody's anatomy is the same.
Right.
15 centimeters is on one person, could be just from the anus to the mid scrotal sac, and another person that's from their anus halfway to their belly button.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So kind of take those pictures with a grain of salt. Okay.
Right.
Use more of the body model that and the relationship of that, because of that. Some trans men, I go to do their forums, like, I need 8 inches. Okay, 8 inches is all the way up to their elbow.
Yeah.
Okay, and they've made adjustments to where they only really want it to be this far, which to them maybe only be 5 inches because they're a short guy, and so,
some doctors are they're going to graft this skin somehow onto their genitals.
Yeah. So what they do is they use the skin around the forearm, and they do a graft. And I think it's the pinky side that they use for the urethra. And the rest they use for the shaft. Okay. And the scrotal area, and no, for the shaft. Yeah, for the shaft.
Okay.
And main reason why they like that tissue is there's nerve bundles that go through in here, and they attach those nerve bundles to the clitoris, and those nerve bundles go through that. So eventually, if everything heals correctly, they'll have sensation to the head of the penis. So, and that's one of the reasons why they like using the tissue here, is because they take those nerves and do that. And that one, when you're working on that hair, if it looks like a hair, I kill it, because they're taking the very hormone that creates more hairs.
Yeah.
So I use my stronger loops or the stronger dial on my loops.
Right.
And if it's vellus, I kill it, especially in that area where it's going to be in the urethra, because once it goes in, I can't get there.
Yeah.
I can work on the shaft later, and I won't work on the shaft for at least a good year until they're completely healed, because there's so many healing and blood issues and all this other stuff that can happen for the trans men, and just healing alone. It's like, I'm not screwing with that shit for a year after surgery.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a personal choice.
There's so much to know, and I wish we could talk for another hour, but I have some clients coming soon. But I really appreciate this. Is there anything else you think you really want to get into the heads of other consultants who are all over the world? Oh, I was going to say too, don't forget, you can go to YouTube and you can look up some of these surgeries. They're not gory. They do it like a simulation.
Yeah.
You kind of understand how they're doing stuff with everything. So, but anyway, what do you think consultants really need to know, Kelly, that are listening to this?
Well, you did mention about the faces, and I didn't really get to finish answering that question because, of course, I get on my soapboxes.
Yeah. That's okay.
So with the face, like I say, 300 to 600 hours.
Okay.
The area, if they don't have strong opinions on where they want to start and they're not sure, you really want to start in here, because this is the gender marker. This is the marker that if people see darkness of hair underneath, they're going to get misgendered, which is a stab to the heart.
Yeah.
Okay. So you figure out how much time they can handle a week or every other week, get them on their financial schedule or emotional or pay or pain schedule that you can get them on.
Right.
And then you constantly work on thinning this out.
Yep.
And then get to the point to where you're clearing it out. Once this is clear, their life is going to get a lot easier.
Yeah. And
then you can either move out this way or this way.
Yep.
And that's kind of like the short version of how I deal with stuff.
Yeah.
The long version, are you going to deal with clearing and doing volume, or are you going to deal with thinning and doing that. If there's a lot of coarse hair and they've got a lot of hair, and doing a volume of electrolysis and worrying about too much swelling and stuff like that, you probably want to stay 2 to 3 millimeters apart from each hair.
Right.
And do a thing like that. Once you get really good at planning your current, because if you go and clear a chin and you clear their lip in one session, the next day they're going to look like Lisa Simpson and Lake Child.
They have that. Yeah.
It's going to swell up 4 times the size.
Right.
You want them to make sure that they sleep with their head elevated.
Mm.
So it drains better.
Yeah.
Okay. There's going to be swelling. There's going to be a lot of the golden crust from the swelling and the healing. And that's your lymph tissue. Okay. And your white corpuscles just trying to do its healing.
Yep.
And you want to tell them to either get in the shower with temperate water and rehydrate it and just gently wipe it off your face, or use a wet cloth and rehydrate that and then gently wipe it off your face. And that's going to happen for, some people will get it. Some people get it 1 or 2 days. Some people will get it for like 3 or 4 days, depending on how much swelling there is.
Right. Yeah.
And it'll be fine. That stuff's actually good for healing. That's all the kind of stuff that you want for healing. That's the healing stuff that is out there fighting it. So you want that to help. A lot of icing.
Icing. And do you recommend anything that people put any kind of topical on it?
Aloe. Gently wash your face, anything that's burn wound healing, because that's what it is. It's a giant burn wound.
And the other thing I always say, this is to everybody, once you go home, I have no more control, but there's a few things I would like you to do. Yeah. Try not to touch it a million times, because fingers are full of bacteria no matter how much you wash them. And if you're going to dry it, pat it dry very gently with a very clean and brand new paper towel, or a very clean and brand newly washed towel, because towels carry bacteria. And I don't want you to add a bunch of bacteria, or no exfoliating when you get home. I always say, treat it like it's new skin, like you're a baby, and give it like 2 or 3 days before you start doing anything crazy to it.
Well, yeah. And if you're doing volume, you want it to be maybe more like a week, or 10 days until your skin starts feeling normal again, and when you're doing volume, and if people are older, and if they have a lot of healing issues, you want to make sure they understand that, especially in through here and here, and maybe in through here, they might have that dimpling or waviness of skin, because you're going to beat the shit out of their collagen and their reticular tissues.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And this is a choice they have to make.
Right.
It's like, do you want to do skin resurfacing later and possibly have that? Or do you want me to take my time and thin it out? And let them make that mental choice.
Good advice.
Emotionally, they're like, get the hair off my face now.
They want it done so fast.
Full of pills. You know what? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I will clear this hair off your face. You can do skin research. I have educated. They made a choice between their physical and mental health.
Yeah. Yep. Makes sense.
And if you want them to sign off on it, have them sign off on it.
Right. Right.
Now if they're 20, you could take a torch to that face. And
it really happens so fast.
Barring that they don't have any, major health things.
Right.
But, if you're not sure about it, go in slow, thin it out, and constantly work on that area until you're clearing and maintaining it before you move on to other areas.
Before we end, tell everybody how they can get in touch with you, where they can find you.
Oh, okay. I'm in Oak Park. The school is Illinois Dedicated Electrology Academy, and that website is welcome2idea.com. So that's the word welcome, IDEA.com. I can't smell. I haven't finished my coffee.
Drink your coffee.
And the best way to get in contact us is through our email there, and that's info@welcome2idea.com.
Very cool.
My work where Kelly Inc. is, that the website for that is izappem.com. And that's where my website is and stuff like that. And the phone number there is 708-386-4663.
Wonderful.
And
social media?
Huh?
Are you on social media?
Shit. I'm on Facebook, but it says me, and I screw around. I do everything on that. I
No.
think I have some because they set it up for me, but I don't know how to make that work.
It's so crazy
You know,
because, you know,
I'm lucky enough I don't need to
yeah, as
because
an
that's the
electrologist, you don't even have to
reputation that
really do
I have.
anything.
But and honestly, I don't have the time to screw around with all that
I hear
stuff.
you. I hear you.
You know, so
I mean,
right
I
now I'm
see.
focusing on making more zappers,
Right.
trying to make more good
Wow.
colleagues out there. And honestly, if you want to do some additional training, contact me through the school.
Cool.
I have people that come in for all over.
Lectures
If
and
you
stuff.
can bring a client with you or a friend that can be honest and be like, oh, this is what feels good. This is what doesn't feel good. This is what feels different. So when you go back, you've got a live person to help groom you into better habits.
Right.
And I might learn something from you.
Yep.
You know,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
so that can always be arranged. I'd get people to come in for a day class or a weekend thing or some shadowing. It's just we got to set it up ahead of time, so we can make clients aware and get permissions and things like that. So
Right.
yeah, I do all that.
We need more electrologists in the world. We have a shortage everywhere. We're all so slammed here, and I know you guys are slammed there too. We just don't have enough. We
Oh,
need more.
there's 8 electrologists in my office. There's 8. And I'm going to be, and basically my clients who went to school are now working with me, and the idea is for them to work with me. And then after 2 to 5 years, some will stay and some, I want them to go off and start their own practice. And if it's right, I don't care. I still have 8 electrologists in my place and we're still all slammed. The only ones that can take new business are the new ones.
Right.
Yeah. We're all slammed.
Yeah. Well, it's lovely. So much. Appreciate all of your information and your knowledge today. I'm sure it's going to help lots and lots of electrologists out there. I'll share it around. I'll put all your information in the show notes so people know how to get in touch with you. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend and go zap them, Kelly.
Kill the hairs.
Bye. Bye, Chica.
Bye.
Thank you.